So for this video, I wanted to cover some minifigures that are both of the custom and official variety that I've either put off from buying because they weren't realistically obtainable, extremely hard to find, or just so expensive that I couldn't justify the means to purchasing them. That has changed, because this year I've obtained a lot of my most wanted minifigs from various shops and people, some of various degrees of rarity. Part of me getting a lot of these so quickly just this year is partly thanks to my trip to Brickworld Chicago. Queen Amidala is one of those crazy figures that some LEGO designers just said, I'ma lock in and create the most accurate representation of Padme from episode 1. A lot of things are right with this figure. The overmold crown details, her unique never used again skirt mold piece, the print pattern matching up from the torso to the dress. This is from a set that I'll definitely part out later because I really do love the Gungan sub. I'm not sure how I missed this set as a kid, as it was out right around the time that I was interested in buying LEGO Star Wars before my dark age. There's quite a lot of figures in my backlog that I want to collect, but I'm just unwilling to pay the BrickLink prices here. So speaking of pricing, what is pretty special about this figure is that I obtained it from BricksAndFigsDE, an online shop based in Germany, which has some really good prices for figures that are normally sold in the States for an exuberant price. If you aren't aware, the aftermarket for LEGO Star Wars has been insanely inflated since 2020, which is honestly just a sign of the hobby growing and expanding more than I could have ever imagined. Regardless, if you're unwilling to shove about $200 for Queen Amidala, you could do what I did and grab her and a couple other rare minifigs from BricksAndFigsDE. You can get her for a little bit less than the usual rates here, even with shipping. The rates for rare figures in Europe tend to be a lot less, so BricksAndFigs just passes off that discount to buyers while also making some sort of a return. The reason this is the case is because LEGO in Europe just has a higher, richer distribution rate than that of North America. There's a lot more supply while also having a very moderate demand. You can also use code BrickFleet for 5% off your order. I'm not gonna lie, Jabba is a figure that I bought out of panic because I saw the rumored images that Jabba from the new sail barge wouldn't have pupils. A figure like this I could easily see being scalped by larger YouTubers and whatnot sellers to sort of convince you that it'll never be this good again. Part of the reason why we're in this mess to begin with is because of the cycle. It happened with BD1 to a small degree, same with 2020 Captain Rex, as well as the original Jedi Bob from the 2000s. While it is pretty clear now that it was just a rumor and completely false, it was still a very worrying rumor of an ongoing trend. I wouldn't necessarily say I bought it in fear that the new one would be worse, but because it's just a figure that's been on my list for quite some time, that my decision was accelerated by my fear that the figure was going to get scalped after the sail barge reveal. If there's any other figures I would want to buy from the same lineup, that would have to be Salacious B. Crumb and Max Rebo from the same year. Back in late September, Redmill Customs released Commander Keeley alongside a couple of other clone troopers of the Phase 1 variety. These are special because they're not just Phase 1 clones, however they are Phase 1 clone troopers in the Clone Wars style, which lasted from roughly 2008 to 2012, before the style was discontinued in favor of a more movie-accurate, realistic style in sets from 2013 onward. It's really interesting that a custom company has taken a liking to a unique direction of going back to an older art style. Yeah, there are customs out there that imitate the classic Star Wars minifigure feel, but this is different. This is by far the most unique idea there is in terms of clones, only for the fact that it is a mid-generation design that lasted for a much shorter period of time than other eras of LEGO's design language. There are a lot of things that they improved on, of course, like there being a far deeper coverage on the back of the helmet, and the inclusion of arm printing, which both aren't things that were typically done on the LEGO minifigure back in the late 2000s. However, they did choose to omit toe or shoe prints on their interpretation of this template. I chose Keeley for this example, but really all of the Redmill custom clones are just as good. Am I blinded by an era of nostalgia? Maybe, but that doesn't take away from the fact that I think they're super great minifigs made by a creator who has a good passion for this line of work. Captain Tuck is one of those GCC figures that I just completely slept on back in the earlier days of the brand's run. I don't know too much about the source material that it came from, nor do I know why it was so rare at the time, but he's a custom that goes for ridiculous prices on the aftermarket. I've seen eBay listings in the thousands, as well as absurd offers on trade forums. Tuck is actually supposed to make a reappearance in GCC's product catalog very soon, except this time on the V2, the helmets used will be replicas rather than the official turquoise mold. I'm not sure if this is still true or if it's been cancelled, but I think it's one of those customs where on paper it shouldn't have as much value as it does. But in reality, it's just people giving it that much value. It's something I've spoken with Hello There Rex about when it comes to rare customs. Customs can get super expensive solely based on the arbitrary value we give them, even though they're all pretty much easily replicable. The Tactical Droid is a minifigure that was actually gifted to me during BrickWorld Chicago. The TX Droid is probably my most anticipated minifigure from the CIS Army, next to Magna Guards. I just think that there's something really cool about LEGO putting out this one-off mold for a figure and not ever doing it again. In a way though, I wish we got a chance to see other Tactical Droid units. It was already a surprise to see this TX Commander because LEGO rarely ever issues new droid molds. The original set that this was released in didn't interest me that much apart from the minifigures. I have a decently sized CIS army, so I'm always happy to add something meaningful like a tactical droid to the display, as they are pretty hard to come by and end up being rather expensive on places like Bricklink. Commander Pawns is another one of those GCC minifigures that just had an extremely limited drop and is arguably worth quite a bit. I don't think it nearly has as much trade power as something like Tuck, but it still stands up there in being pretty sought after. Pawns is also, strangely enough, part of that trend of fan-on figures that never truly existed in canon. He actually was KIA before he could even get himself Phase 2 armor, so this is more like what if Pawns survived Vancor. This is a figure that I obtained in a trade a couple months back, and I'm glad to be able to get a hold of something semi-rare like Pawns. However, he has come back again in another GCC drop, but just in a brown color rather than red. The iridescent one is by far one of the cooler oddities that GCC has ever produced. It reminds me of the promo polybags that LEGO used to make in the late 2000s. TC-14, Stormtrooper, Darth Vader, all of those figures are things that I'm just a huge fan of. I wish LEGO would bring back that chrome color. Although, to be honest, that chromed out clone doesn't actually have the same lacquered chrome texture as the LEGO one. It's actually a bit better in a way. I could actually feel the grindy rigidness of the LEGO one, but the GCC version doesn't actually feel that way. It does have a really different texture than LEGO, that's for sure. I'm not sure how Yoshan actually made these. It's an awesome figure that actually got a V2, but I just didn't see the need in procuring it, since the V1 is about the same more or less. Well, that's all I have for today's video. Be sure to check out BricksAndFigsDE on his online web store to shop for Star Wars official and custom minifigures. Don't forget to use code BrickFleet on your next order for a 5% discount. I know his shop has helped me out a lot in procuring some of the more rare figures on my wanted list. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one.